Mastering the sales conversation is not about strategy, it's about speaking the truth. In this episode, I chat with the founder of Gain the Edge, Jim Padilla, who is also known as the go-to guy for all things sales. You're going to learn why purpose yields profit, why managing sales objectives doesn't even matter, and you'll learn Jim's 3 C's to creating a powerful sales conversation. With their army of heart-centered sales rock stars, Jim and his wife Cindy partner with top industry leaders to help exponentially increase their online launch and back-of-room revenue. Jim has created a strategic sales system and a sales force to be reckoned with. His team averages over 25,000 sales conversations per year in a variety of different formats. Gain the Edge is the secret weapon of choice for many industry experts, helping them bring in over 100 million in sales. Jim's purpose is to help entrepreneurs scale their business with the power of collaboration so they can overcome their obstacles and impact the world the way they intended. At Gain the Edge, Jim is known for instilling into a sales team, it's not what you say, it's who you are being when you say it. And we talk more in depth about this in the actual episode. Now, today's episode is sponsored by the Mayfair Hotel and Eve American Bistro in downtown LA, which is home of my annual 3-day event, Amplified Soul Live. This event is guaranteed to provide you with tools to create influence and impact and strategies to boldly stand out and be recognized for the work that you do. The 2019 event takes place February 22nd to the 24th. For info and tickets, please head to www.rubyfremont.com/ASL. Finally, if you're new to this podcast or you are a loyal thought leader, please drop a rating and review on iTunes. And now, it is time to master sales with Jim Padilla, the real go-to guy for all things sales. Welcome to today's Thought Leader, where I'm challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. I'm your host, Ruby Fremont, and I'm here as a catalyst for you, the new generation of thought leaders. Join me every week as I dive into raw and real conversations that will help you amplify your presence, influence, and impact. Hey, thought leaders, we are back, and here's another guest that I met at the New Media Summit, and Jim Padilla has made an impact on me because he held space at the back of the room at this event. And he is, quote unquote, the go-to guy for all things sales. So I'm really excited, Jim, to dive into a conversation about sales, because I said scales and sales in the same way, because all of us, me included, and my listeners want to scale our businesses. And I feel from just my experience and what I've experienced with my clients that people who feel like they have a purpose-driven business are often the ones who struggle with sales the most.
Yes. Yeah. Big time. Yeah. There's a lot of confusion around that. We get into this purpose. Should I be on purpose or should I be about profit, instead of realizing the relationship and the necessity for both?
Yeah. And I've even been playing with that too, like purpose and profit, or profit and purpose, meaning and money and meaning. So how would you describe the correlation between purpose and profit and purpose?
I believe that profit is a byproduct of living in purpose. And most of the time it's not the hard part about it is that it's not an equal correlation. It's not a formula that you can lay out, kind of like going to the gym. We know that if you eat well and you go to the gym every day, at some point you're going to be healthy and you're going to look good.
Yeah.
I don't know when, and I don't know how many days you need to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And purpose kind of works the same way. If you're intentional about serving people on purpose and living out what your ideal purpose is, and doing the things you're supposed to do, like telling the truth, like challenging people to be what they're supposed to be, the people will show up, right? The profit will come. And, I made a lot of money unethically in my youth, and it was all easy come, easy go. And it wasn't until I started really understanding that it wasn't about using my powers for me, it was about using my powers for other people, that I started serving them. And then all of a sudden I started making money. And people, it's easy to say something. I get this a lot. Like, well, it's easy for you because you guys make millions of dollars. You're doing a lot of things, making money. I promise you, I didn't start making that kind of money until
Yeah.
I started serving people first.
Mm. So for you, it was adopting the idea of service first that actually brought in the profit.
Yeah, part of it is because sales is energy, right? All
Mm-hmm.
conversation is energy. Anything between
Mm-hmm.
two people is all about energy. And highest energy typically wins. And when you're in a place of, so when you're searching for the money, where you're searching for your own material needs, you tend to be at a lower level of energy, a lower vibration, right? And when you're on purpose and you're doing what you're supposed to be, like all of our purpose has nothing to do with ourselves. You were
Mm-hmm.
gifted here to the rest of the world. So if you're living in purpose, you're serving others. And then as a result, everybody else takes care of you. That's how community is created. That's how the world
Mm.
was created. So if you're serving others, then the byproduct, you get blessed out of the overflow and the plenty of that.
Yeah. And I think that the piece about that most people struggle with, and I remember if I go back to even just my first 3 months of coaching, because this is probably when I struggled with it the most, it's the ask, right? It's like,
Yeah.
wow, I finally found my purpose. For me, it was coaching. I finally found what I want to do. I want to serve people. And I'm also supposed to ask for money.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that is vital. But it's understanding that if you're showing up in service of other people and you're helping deliver what's in their best interest, there is an investment that's associated with that. There's a price. Now,
Mm.
if you have the thing you have to focus on is if you have people that are, we'll just call them less fortunate, the people who can't afford your services,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be thriving and build your business around people who can invest in you so that you now can go out and serve the people who can't afford you. But if you
Right.
spend your time trying to serve people who can't afford you, you'll never be able to provide the services for the other people who can.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting because I think a lot of people, well, here's what I found, and I'm just going to be super blunt. So I found that, especially in the personal development industry, there's a lot of sales scripts floating around, and there's
Yes.
a lot of bullshit around like, hey, let's charge what you're worth. And it fucks with people's minds because they're like, oh, so I'm not supposed to charge this. I have to charge this exuberant amount that doesn't really ultimately doesn't really align with their audience. And I've seen this happen time and time again. In fact, this happened to me in my, I think it was my, after a year and a half, I raised my prices and didn't get what I thought I was going to get, which was interesting. But there's a lot of that where people are feeling bad about not charging enough, and then feeling bad about charging too much, and then feeling like they have to follow a specific way of doing things or charging so that it makes them feel more worthy. I mean, have you've seen this, right? I'm not just
Totally.
going crazy.
It's all over the place. And here's the when it really boils down to one thing for me. And I've been studying this for so many years because it's
Mhm.
it's made me money and it's cost me fortunes.
Mm,
Um, you have to be able to trust you.
mm,
Right.
yeah.
You can't worry about what the market says. You can't worry about what every expert on Facebook says, what all these industry leaders say, because all they know is what's good for them. They don't know what's good for you. You know what's good for you. You
Yeah.
know what's going to make you feel, if you're charging something, a price level that is going to stretch you, it should. Anything you charge for somebody, you should be
Mhm.
thinking about over delivering, and that over delivering should scare you. So if you
Mhm.
charge somebody $10,000, you should want to give them $100,000 worth of value.
Mm.
So it should stretch you. And if it's too low because you resent it, you're like, "God, I'm not charging $1,500 for that, or even 10,000 if you think that's well below your value." If that's the case, then again, coming back to the energy piece, your energy is going to be off because you don't believe in it, you resent it, you're not going to sell it. And if you do, that person's probably going to cancel. You're going to do some things. You're not going to serve them the way you should because you feel like they underpaid. There's so much stuff that's going to go on and mess up your energy flow. Just focus on what really comes out of you and serves you. Because if it's not in service to you, you can't serve them.
Mm. I'm going to repeat that. If it's not in service to you, it's not going to serve them. And I think that's really important for everyone listening to understand. Um, as I just let that sink in too, uh, because we're always so especially for service-based businesses, we're always so focused on the person we're serving that we often forget to serve ourselves. And I have experienced that trap of underpricing and then resenting and feeling overworked and feeling burnt out.
I'm sure we all
And
have.
yeah, and it's like it's this weird balance, right, where you go from like one side where it feels like it's not enough and one side where it feels like it's too much, and it fucks with your head and the energy that you present when you're making the enrollment doesn't really line up. And so where is that fine balance where we actually feel fully aligned with our energy and we can present confidently? Or is there like some sort of strategy that you have for that, for the enrollment process?
Yeah, it's kind of what I was just talking about. Just I remove kind of, I can't stand that maybe language. It's what I was talking about. You have to find the balance. It
Mhm,
should stretch you and keep you from resenting. You don't have
mhm,
to stretch yourself to the fullest, but it should stretch you
mhm,
and and put you in a place of feeling like you're going to have to do some work to deliver, to be in integrity.
mhm,
And so adjust that and then make sure, I mean, be responsible and know how much it's going to cost you. We've had plenty of times where we sold a program that was actually costing us more than we charged to deliver it.
yep,
And if you sell too many of those, you're going to go out of business. So
mhm,
be careful on that. So make sure you're doing your math and being a responsible business owner. But then from there, you really do have to step into trusting it. And you have to, if you don't learn to trust yourself, you're never going to be effective as a business owner or as a leader, creating a movement, changing lives. Because when people come to you, they are counting on your confidence, your certainty, and your clarity because they're lacking it. That's why they need you. So
mm,
you got to be crystal clear and rock solid on where you're going. I can remember the movie. I wish I could because I've told this story a few times, but I watched a movie where there was a boat crashed on an island,
mhm,
and there was like 20 people, and everybody's fighting for who's the leader here, right?
yeah,
And there was one of the guys who put himself, essentially, he just took the actions of a leader, and there was a plane that went by and crashed on the other side of the island,
mhm,
and he just said, "Okay, that way we got to go see." There was something they were headed to, and he left. And the group had been sitting on this beach on the island for like a few days. They were afraid to leave because they thought there was something, they were waiting for a signal.
mhm,
And he didn't know what was over there at all. He just knew that if he went and with certainty and clarity, that people would follow or
mm,
not. So people just like, well, they didn't even know what he was doing. They just followed him because he moved with certainty and purpose.
mhm,
And then a couple of people stayed behind, but everybody else was like, I gotta follow this guy. I don't
mhm,
know where he's going, but he knows where he's going. Right. And that's a lot of what the sales conversation is. They're not sure. And you can't give off weak maybe signals. You have to be like, yes, this is what you're going to do. This is how it's going to be done. And I've helped many people get there. They need to know that when you're reaching out that hand that says, I got you, that they know they can hold on to it and it's going to be firm and it's going to be solid. You can't go, yeah, well, I might be able to help you with that. Bullshit. I can't. That's not confidence for me. That's not worth me jumping off my ledge into your arms that may or may not catch me.
mhm.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. The three C's: confidence, certainty, and clarity.
Yes.
So powerful. And it ties back to what you were saying about energy, right?
For
And
sure.
there is so much that we bring to a sales conversation other than the words themselves or the numbers themselves. It's
Yes.
the presence and the energy. And if you aren't confident in what you have to offer or the transformation that you can offer or who you are, that would totally fuck with people's decision making. Because like I wouldn't want to go, it's kind of the same reason where we question dentists with really bad teeth, or you know what I mean, or a
Right.
hairdresser, a hairstylist with like really awful hair. Like we question that there's something missing. We have to be what it is that we represent. But that leads me to my next question. There's also this idea of like falsified confidence, which to me reads the same as lacking confidence.
Yeah. So my take on that is fake it till you make it is only good for yourself. It's
Mm,
not good for the public. Fake
mm,
it till you make it. If you got to Tell yourself in the mirror, you're a millionaire. You've got, you're impacting the world. Awesome. Do whatever you got to do to fuel you, but don't get in front of other people and bullshit them,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the beginning of the energy suck. Now, it's the hard part is nobody identifies it. People aren't going to talk to you and go, oh, I think he might have been lying about credibility. They're just going to go, seems like a nice guy, but there's just something off.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're going to get to the end of the conversation. They're going to leave. I kind of like her a lot, but I'm not sure. And you know how it comes out in the form of, well, I got to think about it. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy because people spend so much time going, well, Jim, how do I overcome? I got to think about it. You don't. The reason they got to think about it is because you didn't instill confidence in them.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't lead them to a
Yeah.
place where they didn't need to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think about it as code for you haven't connected the dots.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like I don't teach objection handling, quite
Mm-hmm.
honestly. I don't believe in them. I don't think objections are really there. I think nobody objects to you or your product. They're just hesitant to move forward primarily because they lack clarity or certainty or confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just address, okay, I'm sensing some hesitation here. What are we not clear about?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so let's talk about it. We're going to get to it now.
Mm-hmm.
And but it all circles back to having such a level of confidence in who you are that you can talk, know who you're talking to, what you're talking to them about, where you should be leading them, if you should be leading them. Right. I don't talk to anybody at this stage of my business. Probably one of the greatest assets I bring to this conversation is that I literally do not care if you buy or not. And
Right.
for the most part, I'm not actually here to talk to you about buying. When people come to me, because we get a lot of people that come to us because we get tons of referrals. It's our
Mm-hmm.
primary source of business, and I turn most of them away. They get on the call like, well, how do I hire your team, or how do you help us? Like, well, I'm doing everything I can to turn them back towards other solutions.
Mm-hmm.
That way they know for damn sure if they're here, it's because they want to be.
Yeah.
Right. And I know most people don't do that. Most people do it the opposite. You take somebody who's not sure that they want to be here and you're trying to convince them that they
Yeah.
need to be. Way backwards.
Yeah, I mean, I even feel the energy suck when you just made those two distinctions, right? It takes so much more energy to gravitate towards people who aren't sure. And then you're just wasting your energy trying to convince them versus finding those who are certain, those who are like the hell yes or the fuck yes. But in order to get that too, it starts with you. Like for me, I have this rule: if it's not a fuck yes, it's fuck no. But that
Yes.
also goes for me. I need to be a full on soul resounding fuck yes to the people that I really want to work with. And when I flipped the table on me, things changed because it forced me to look at all the ways in which I was presenting myself and showing up in those types of conversations. And the biggest thing that I have, and I know so many people in my audience have struggled with in terms of the sales conversation, is the fear, right? The fear of rejection, because this is, of course, one of our innate needs. Maslow is a smart guy. He created these hierarchy of needs. We all have a need to feel loved and belonging.
Right.
And when that is threatened in some way, shape, or form, which it is sometimes with sales conversations, we tend to go back into that fearful place. So how do we navigate through that, or how do we prepare ourselves to not be faced with that in the middle of a conversation?
The first part of this is understanding that it's not about you.
Mm,
Right? People are showing up because they need something. And typically, whenever we're concerned about how we're going to look on the other end, it's because we're worried about us instead of them. That's your first problem. So if you're worried about you, you're not going to be tuned into them, and you can't serve them if you're not tuned into them. The other thing is the simple reality that there is no such thing as a no. There's only a not right now, because anybody who says no to you today, here's the cool part. Like if you're not great at sales, fabulous. Call the same people back every 90 days because you're going to keep getting better. You go, hey, I just wanted to let you know I learned something new today and I want to share it with you. Tell people, be boldly honest, ruthlessly. Like, hey, look, I suck at the sales conversation, but please don't let my lack of sales skill be an indicator for how powerful I am as a coach. And you
mm,
know what happens? The script flips. Now all of a sudden they're rooting for you to win.
mm-hmm,
They're, instead of sitting back judging you in a conversation, why are you going to sell me? What are you going to do to me? And why are you pressuring me? They're rooting for you. Your defenses have dropped down and now they want to engage you, right?
Mhm.
Just be truthful
I
and then trip
love
on
that. Yeah.
that.
I mean, Jim, we've only just started getting to know each other, but I'm sure something that you picked up on from me is that I love potent truth and I love people who are raw and real. So that really resonates with me. Um, I know it can be both just as scary to speak the truth too, because now all of a sudden you're saying, I'm not an expert at this. And I think a lot of people have um, issues with that surrounding that because they always want to be perceived as like the best at something. So that's a really interesting flip. And I really challenge my listeners, and I will do this too, to play with that. Because I think that's a really interesting flip to put into play. Is like, what if I were to just approach the sales conversation from a place of being completely 1,000% raw and real, and just straight up say, if I'm not good at sales, hey, I haven't had a track record of being great at sales, but I don't want you to use that against what I actually have to offer. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
love that.
To say, hey, look, we're gonna have a conversation. I'm gonna ask you some things here. I'm gonna bumble and stumble. Please forgive me. And if I say I'm not, I'm not a pro at sales. I'm just a
Mm,
pro at serving people like you and solving their problems. You know, um, I
mm.
don't have that same luxury because people expect me to be great at sales, and I do everything in my power to flip that. I'm always,
Yeah.
hey, look, I'm not a pro. You know what I'm great at? Telling the truth, serving people, and not giving a crap about the response.
Mm.
That's what I'm great at. And yeah, I mean, $250,000 in sales. I'm pretty good at this. Okay. I've done it for a while. Um, but if you would be really disappointed if you listen to my sales calls because it's not full of like perfect lines and great comebacks. It's just me talking to people just like this. We're just talking. The difference is I am boldly unashamed of the truth. And partly because I've learned the hard way that, if not telling the truth costs you every time.
Mm.
Maybe short term, maybe long term, it will cost you. So just serve the truth, show up and tell people what needs to be said. If you go in the mirror, if I go in the mirror and I got my hair messed up and there's green stuff in my teeth and my fly is down, what's
Yeah.
the mirror going to say? Hey, your hair's messed up. You got some green stuff and your fly's down. Now it's up to you what the hell you're going to do about it.
Hmm.
Right. And that's the sales conversation. You just got to be telling people the truth of what is because you may be the only person who ever will.
Yeah.
So if you can't, you're not in service to them. And if you don't, I know you'll treat your clients that way once they've paid you, right?
Hmm.
Because they've given you that implied consent. You can treat me any way you need to get
Yeah.
me the result. Well, my belief is if you start treating your clients or your potential clients as if they were your clients, they'll
Hmm.
become your clients.
Mm.
Treat them with that same level of respect and dignity and tell them the truth when they say, yeah, I don't know, I'm gonna have to think about this, or that's a big investment, maybe I'll wait till next year. Do you have the audacity to tell them you can't do that? What you just shared with me is going to change the world. I have a grandson that was just born a week ago. You need to be doing this now to make this world a better place for him. You can't wait till next year. Have you ever
Mm.
talked to somebody like that in a sales conversation? Right? Nobody talks to people like that. So
Wow.
when you
Yeah.
do, you'll be the first and you will have their attention and their respect and their leadership.
Yeah. Wow. You just blew my mind like 5 times in that one like rant that you just delivered. Um eh, and the reason why it's blowing my mind is because just from my personal experience, it feels as if for a long time, at least like the past 4 years, 5 years, this industry has been super sales heavy. Here's the strategies to do X, Y, and Z. Here's the format. Just fill in the blank, read this off on a phone call. And it was getting really heavy on like psychological tricks. And really what you're saying is like, forget all of that and just be real and be honest. And that is what people are craving more than ever. And it's something that I witnessed. So, Jim, one of the reasons why I really wanted you on the show, because I have lots of people that I know that do sales, but from what I observed, so when Jim was working the back of the room at Steve Olsher's New Media Summit, the thing that I observed was Jim's energy. Like your energy was so welcoming and so authentic, and you were high-fiving people and you knew people by name, and it was so personal, and there was like, oh, you could tell that every single person that you came into contact with, whether it was at the back table or just you walking around the room, you had created a connection with. And that was so refreshing to see. And I would love to hear more about how you create this connection and why you feel it's so important.
Let me tell a little bit of my background so it has a little bit more relevance.
Yeah.
Um, I was born to teenage parents, and my dad took off immediately. My mom was 16, no clue how to raise a kid. Had no business having a kid, but obviously, thank God she did. And her primary response to a very unfortunate situation was fear and anger. And I got the crap beat out of me my entire childhood. Baseball bats, broomsticks, plates over the head, you name it. I mean, real severe abuse. I was in foster care at 13 and on the streets at 16 and in jail at 19. So the first 25 years of my life, I literally spent every single day trying to figure out how to bend the room to favor me. So I had to really start understanding what was going to be important to people. I didn't care about me. The only way I could protect me was to care about them. So I figured no matter who it was, criminals, violent people, my mom, who's supposed to be the one protecting me, was the one I needed protection from. And the whole time I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? And so I spent all my time trying to figure out how do I make her feel not threatened so she won't want to hurt me.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not about being nice. Right. Matter of fact, I'll save that one because that's my love punch I was thinking about. But it's about being of service. Right. You have to be able to serve them to their utmost. Because what everybody think about? I don't care what business you have, what degree of expertise you have. We're all selfish beings. We all care about us. We all want what works for us. Even the most giving people on the planet do it because there's there's a sense of fulfillment for doing it. So get to the core of what matters to those people and serve them powerfully. So I learned this skill set, and I started, I used to have an ADT security dealership. I had offices in 3 cities, 150 reps. I had a mortgage company. I made lots of money, but I burned a lot of people, burned a ton of bridges. And part of how this came to be was after the mortgage crisis hit in 2008, I had already left the industry, but I met a woman, the daughter of a 72-year-old woman that I had put into a loan that she had no business being in, but I made money off of it. So that's why I did it. And she came across the gas station to me and she said, "You're the devil and you're a crook. And I hope whatever comes to you, whatever you deserve, whatever happens to you, you deserve it." And my mother's living in that car. And at that moment, I felt like I wish she would have hit me or a car would have run me over because I didn't know what to think or to feel or to say at that moment, except I knew she was right. She was speaking truth. So at that moment, everything kind of rushed through me. All my skill set, all my childhood, all of the skills I learned to be able to master the environment, teaching other people how to influence the world around them so they can get people to trust themselves, to trust them and buy from them. And I decided, okay, from that day forward, I'm going to use this skill to serve people. I'm going to take everything out of my sales process that is manipulating or that is deceitful or that is wrong or dark or is in favor of me making money. And I'm only going to put in the things that are all about helping to serve people and elevate people. And so that's how my whole system has been born, my process. And it's, again, the funny part of the system is that it's not a system.
Yeah.
You talk about all the scripts. There's nothing wrong with scripts. Anybody following a script, great. But they're not intended for you. Scripts were designed for the person who designed them.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're trying to kill yourself to make sales following somebody else's blueprint, which may or may not have ever been designed for your success.
Yeah.
Right. And so you've been selling since you were born. You sold your spouse or your partner on being with you. You sell your friends on going to the movies. You sell your friends on going to a restaurant. You sell your kids on taking out the trash. You've been doing it your whole life. No scripts and no funnels, guys. Right. So stop thinking you need one. You need an unabashed passion and zealousy to be zealous for the truth and just care enough about people to know what they want And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what they want, then be good at finding out what they want and then
Mm-hmm.
help them get it. And you're going to make a ton of friends and a ton of money. Every person that you do that with will not buy from you. But when you do that, people will buy from you. People will refer you. People will talk about you. My calendar is full all the time, every month, has been for the last 5 years, with people who show up wanting to buy from me because everybody else sends them to me because I do nothing but take care of everybody else and deliver on what I say I can.
Yeah. And I want to just point that out too, is that you say you take care of everybody and you deliver, because there's a difference between like really truly being of service and being in service with an attached outcome. And from what you've described, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your story. What a powerful story. And it just provides a lot of context for how you've come to this place and how you've chosen to now run your business. But there is such a clear, um, this is such a clear example of someone who is really coming from a place of service to serve, because you actually understand that in doing so, things will come, versus there's a different energy. Well, I'm going to serve and I have this attached outcome that at the end of this service, this call, this whatever it is, they're going to enroll with me, or they're going to buy my product, or they're going to do this. And there, that is such an important distinction to make too.
Yeah. Thank you for acknowledging. And you can make this really simple. There's obviously a lot more to it, and I can't solve all your problems
Yeah.
in 40 minutes. But um, when you're having a sales conversation, what we teach is a park bench approach to a sales conversation. And what that means is you should be able to sit down on a park bench with a random stranger and in 30 minutes know what they want, why they want it, what's keeping them from getting it, how committed are they to solving it, and when are they ready to start. And
Mm,
then you can point them in the direction of whoever else they need. But you should be able to talk to anybody about that. And then what if you find out what they need is something Ruby offers? Great, introduce them to Ruby. If it happens to be what you offer, then you can talk about that. But your objective is not to sell them a damn thing. It is to have a great conversation about clarity, confidence, right? And I totally drew my thought with that. But anyway, it's about having conversations to get them clear about what they want and why they want it and what they need to do about it.
yeah.
And that's it. And if the more people you know and trust and can work with, then from there you go, hey, I know exactly the person who you need to be working with. And I have
Mm,
an entire network of people who provide that. That's how all these people show up on my calendar, because I do the same thing. I don't turn anybody away. I'll talk to anybody who wants to talk, because even if I can't solve their problem, I know at least one person, if not a dozen people who can, that I can send them to get them taken care of. But my
mm,
objective is not for me to solve their problem. My objective is for their problem to be solved.
mm. That is that yet another great distinction. Wow. Um, my mind is blown right now. This conversation is going so much better than I could have ever imagined. Mostly because this is really refreshing. It's refreshing to hear that we can approach sales in a way that feels authentic and real and of service. It was like what you said at the very beginning, sales being energy, um, and really understanding the type of energy that we're bringing into sales and to be of service. Like, even just for me, that feels so freeing. It feels like, wow, I can totally do this. And this feels ease filled. And this feels like I've got it in my back pocket, because this is just who I like to be and how I like to show up, versus let me try and fit this mold of what I think I need to be in a sales call, or from enrolling on stage, because I do have a live event where I enroll on stage. And
Right.
let me try and fit this mold of who I need to be to get these people to be, convince them to say yes. And it's such a different energy. And, um, even I have been playing around just in my live event with the different types of energies, and I feel like I'm landing into my own groove of what feels right. But Jim, I have so much respect for the work that you do, and I think it's just so, so needed, um,
Well, let me
especially
tell
right
you
now.
regarding your event and this,
Yeah.
you guys, everybody take this to heart. Stop worrying about what you think everybody else needs and just be true to what you know you were supposed to be in service of. because what your gifts are designed to solve the right people's problem, not everybody's problem. So just get really clear about your gifts, how you render them, how you show up. When we teach, our tagline here is, it doesn't, what you say is not as important as who you're being while you're saying it. Who
Mm-hmm.
you're being is everything. Words just have the meanings we give them. So what you're saying is irrelevant if you're not being the right person when you're saying it. It's like, I used to be, people always ask, what's the best time to have a webinar? What's the best time of day to have a coaching call? The time that you're at your best is when the call is. I have training calls where we got people in Hong Kong who are 4 a.m.
Yeah.
and they show up. They get up, they set their alarm to get on at 4 a.m. because they know they're going to get the best of Jim because it's at 1 p.m. Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they just make it happen. They don't, I'm like, well, let me do this at 11 o'clock p.m. for you. No, I'm not at my best at 11 p.m. and you're not going to get me at that. I want to be at best for you.
Yeah.
You have to figure out how to make this work. And your people, as long as you're coming from that perfect place of authenticity and power and results and their best, they will align, they will re-change their life to make sure that they can be there for you to help them solve their problem.
Mm.
But if you're
Mm-hmm.
out of sync with it, then it's not. If you're doing a transaction, just some generic sales conversation,
Mm-hmm.
the energy's not there, the connection's not there, the truth is not there. They're not going to feel it, and they don't have any reason to adjust their life to meet yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So just be in service to what's going to put you at your best, and the right people will show up and massively, powerfully respond to that.
I love that. And what a powerful way to cap off this conversation too, Jim. Wow, there were so many nuggets in there. Thought leaders, I highly, highly recommend that you replay this episode with a pen and paper and take everything down. Jim, thank you so much for showing up and for giving it your all on this episode. I know I gained so much from it. I can only imagine like what my listeners have gained. So thank you.
My pleasure.
And so why don't you tell our listeners how they can stalk you online?
Yeah, the best place right now, it's like, go to salesunscripted.com. My podcast is there. You find out more about us. Please subscribe and give me any feedback that you have. We're always listening for that. But engage us in the conversation on Facebook. We have a group called See You at 7, and I'm sure it'll be in the show notes here, but CSEEYOU at the number 7. And the concept there is we're here to help everybody hit that 7-figure mark or that next 7 figures. And we'll see you when you get there. So get in the room, get in the conversation, check us out. We're here to serve. You can engage my team, my wife, who is my partner in business and in life, ask questions. And there's just a group of awesome people who are also on that journey.
I love that. I'll be in that. I'll see you at 7, Jim. I'll see you
Awesome.
at 7. So I'll have those links and more in the show notes, everyone. Listeners, thank you so much for joining us on today's Thought Leader, where I'm challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. If you enjoyed this edition, this special sales edition with Jim, be sure to drop a rating and review on iTunes. If you have any questions for either of us, please reach out to us on line. This episode was sponsored by the Mayfair Hotel and Eve American Bistro. Thank you again, Jim. And I will see everyone here next week for a brand new episode of today's Thought Leader.